We're live. Well, welcome to the stream, everybody. This has been a struggle to get going and to get live finally, but I think we're finally there. Are we?
It says your camera resolution is 1148 by 646, which is not optimal.
Interesting. What's it look like on this video?
Looks fine.
Okay, well, I guess we're gonna keep going. So today we're gonna talk about this camera, which I've been using for about 2 years now. And we're gonna talk a little bit about it and my thoughts on it and my original first impressions and sort of impressions after 2 years of using it. So I want to first say that, by the way, this is, if you didn't see the title, it's the 6D Mark II. They came out with this camera, Canon did a couple of years ago, 3 years ago-ish, but it's been great. I originally had some questions from photographer friends whether or not it has enough focal points or whether the focal points are sort of surrounded around or focused more in the middle, not as much on the outsides of the actual screen or of the field of view, but I've actually not had very many problems with it at all. And if you actually need to focus on something on the outside, you can sort of use the live view and just tap on the screen. It'll focus on the outside a little bit more than usual or than with your actual focus points. One thing I have noticed is with this actual lens right here, the Tamron 24-70 f2.8, it has some issues connecting with it, and it actually has some focus issues. And I've seen on some forums and things like that of people having the same issues, and they'll put this lens on this camera and it'll actually have some problems and won't focus properly, and it has really soft edges and things like that. But if they put the same lens on a 5D Mark IV, it actually is fine, and it works perfectly fine. So be careful with getting a lens such as this. Put some decent amount of research into your lens and whether or not it works with this camera. But it's still, like I said, I still use this setup. I used it, it's the only lens I really walked around with when I was traveling in New York. And it actually worked fine for me. It's more so once you get into a little bit of lower light situations that it really starts to crumble. But yeah, so it's not too bad. Let me just bring up the chat here just in case we have some questions. Should probably mute it. Christopher Payne says, I can see you now. Great. That's awesome that it's actually working. So yeah, if anyone has any questions or anything about photography or anything like that, I'll just keep on going with this camera. It's been really good for photo and video. It's sort of one of the reasons I bought it. I originally used a Nikon beforehand, and I was doing just mostly photos. I went to Australia for 3 months, and I pretty much had my camera in my hand at all times. So I was originally just doing photos, but I wanted to get into some video as well, and Nikon's pretty iffy on the video side. It had 1080p on my D3100, but it was pretty bad, if I can be gentle about it. And it didn't also have a mic input, which is huge for video. So being able to put a Rode Video Mic Pro or something on the top here and actually plug it directly into the camera was a big deal for me. And I started this program at Algonquin, and they suggested Canon cameras. So I decided to jump on with this one, and I've been loving it ever since. But it is a little bit on the pricier side. It's a full frame camera. It's actually their entry level full frame camera. But I've honestly not had many problems other than with this lens, the specific lens. It's been really good. And I've had clients. I showed them a shot mid shoot, and they I was doing a headshot shoot once, and they seemed a little bit skeptical just because of how young I was at the time and how casual the shoot was, and I showed them some of the shots mid-shoot just to give them an idea of how they're doing, and their reaction was, "Whoa, you have a really good camera." So it has that wow factor sort of with the full frame the full frame sensor, that you sort of get that deeper depth of field. I was also using a prime lens with 1.4 aperture, so both of those things together really causes a little bit of a wow factor for people who haven't seen professional photos very much. Do you have some sample images, Chris says? I don't on board here. Unfortunately, I'm on John's computer because mine wasn't really working out. So I would have set up some pictures that we can bring up on the screen, but unfortunately I don't right now. But if you check out the videos I'll be uploading by next week, there will be lots of sample pictures in there and editing workflows and things like that. But yeah, so how long have we been going here? Just some final points on this camera. I can't really say too much about the auto settings or anything like that, mostly just because I've been shooting manual since before this camera. But my favorite things about it, one thing is this flip out screen and that it turns both ways. So you can, if you're filming yourself or something like that and you're looking like this, you can sort of see yourself, which is pretty big for if you're doing vlogging or anything like that in or any YouTube videos or anything. Even if it's on a tripod, you can sort of set it up and still get your framing right and still get your focus and stuff and know what your shot's looking like. So that flip out screen's a big one. And then plus, like I said, the full frame sensor is huge. And then because it's also a little bit more of a professional side camera, the ISO is pretty good, and I can get up to like 2000 ISO and still not have too much grain in my shot. So yeah, it's a great camera. I love it. I've been using it for a while. I'm thinking about potentially switching to the EOS R, which is Canon's mirrorless camera. Mostly because it has a lot of the same features of this. It's slightly more expensive, but because it's that mirrorless style, they sort of have to bump the price up a little bit to put that amount of technology in it. But it's a lot of the same features. It's pretty much a replacement for this camera. It does a lot of the same things, but it's in that smaller form factor, as well as the new lens mount for a lot of their new lenses. So when Canon's coming out with new lenses now, and they're always the RF mount rather than the mount that's currently on this camera, and they're getting their aperture down even lower than normal, as well as different focal ranges and things like that. So that on top of their adapters that have the ND filters behind the lens, and so you don't have to get multiple ND filters. It's just sort of where Canon's headed towards in the future with their innovative products. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the Canon 6D Mark II. And yeah, thank you for watching, everybody, and I will see you next time in probably some videos that will be up by next week. So yeah, thanks for watching. See ya.